Hello, everyone. What a wonderful evening. I know it's already late. It's already late. So, first things first, before we do our presentation. So, complete your survey, please. No, just joking. My name is Oliver. Actually, I'm a security guy, so the dark side of the moon. And together with me is Vukula. He will introduce himself a little bit later, while I'm talking about what will happen in the next 40 hours.
40 minutes.
Minutes. No, get serious, get serious, get serious. Oh, actually, we didn't expect to see anyone else except Mike, he's our manager. Hi, Mike. So thank you for being here. Thank you for being here. I know, as I said, it's late. It's late and party is also planned. So what we'll be doing in the next couple of minutes. So we are a financial industry Erste Group located in Europe. We are a leading group of banks, let's read it in that way, keep mentioning it, a group of banks in Europe. And we try to give the best financial services in the European Union to our clients. Actually, you know, in the financial industry, data analytics is crucial for us. So we were searching for a replacement of our on-premise data analytics platform. And our approach was to go into a hybrid setup environment with a strong focus on the company strategy, cloud first, and the principle of SaaS before BaaS, before IaaS, before do it yourself. So actually, this is our approach, and we finally end up with Databricks. And we started with our journey. We started 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, a little bit, with a more or less, I would say in a way, lift and shift approach. So actually, you know, I'm a security guy. All security guys love these 3-digit letters: ISO, SOC, SOC 2, SOC 3, and so on. So compliant stuff. And the first version of our architecture was mostly driven by security. Vukula will explain it a little bit later. So what we will try to focus on the next couple of minutes is our journey from a lift and shift approach of our on-premise environment into the cloud, and describe our problems we were facing in the area of costs versus performance. And yeah, so let's talk very briefly about us. As I mentioned, we are a group of banks. This is important. It brings up several requirements on or in the area of your basic architecture. We are operating in several entities, mostly Central and Eastern Europe. We are currently acquiring our next subsidiary. We are located in wonderful Austria, Vienna. Maybe you've heard about that. And we have about more or less 6 million of clients. Our most famous client-facing product is called George. Let George do it. Vukula and me, we are from the IT side of the overall company, also located in Vienna, where also our headquarters is located. And we have subsidiaries and branches, as mentioned, all across Europe, with all possible legal implementations of subsidiary you can imagine. We have about 50,000 employees, and yeah, so we are quite huge. In Europe, we are quite huge. I know it's nothing in US, they're much bigger banks. So all this together results in many requirements when we talk about a data analytics platform. And we, as I mentioned, decided for Databricks running on Azure. Why does this quite interesting because Databricks is a subprocess of Azure, of Microsoft. And actually, we already consume Microsoft services. So all those outsourcing stuff were done, and we were ready to run in a high-level architecture in Databricks. And we built up, or we tried to build up, an environment which is absolutely ready to process data from all across the landscape a bank of data classification might have, up to really sensible data, strictly confidential data. We also aim for a platform which is future-proofed, meaning that, you know, Databricks have had a lot of GenAI topics, had a lot of integration to OpenAI. So RAG uses, GenAI use cases are common to us. We also want to consume and provide such services to our clients, but also for our internal stuff. We aim for such a functionality. Very important also for us is that the whole environment, the whole setup is fully automated to be deployed. So all we do is basically driven by Terraform, fully automated, not only because with a security or compliance impact, but also from an access scenario. Theoretically, I must mention, but basically the idea is we can switch the underlying hypervisor more or less. So, you know, in a regulated environment, you have to also think about access scenarios. However, when we talk about the architecture, we aim for many integrations, many possible integrations, so that our data scientists are able to consume the best things out of Databricks and the connected services. So, and this is where everything starts, and this is why it's getting interesting. I mentioned a group of banks. This means each and every entity is fully independent to be managed, although we aim for a central managed platform. Unity Catalogue is from a security perspective, exactly what we were searching for. It's not only identity access management, a control tool, it's also a governance tool. However, if you have many legal entities which act independently, you have to ensure that your platform is ready to support this in a multi-environment setup. In addition, we deal with different kind of data. We have synthetic data, we have production data, we have non-production data. We need an environment where a data scientist can directly access the data. From a security perspective, and to be honest, for me, it's a nightmare. So that a data engineer is able to work with data without DLB. So for a security guy, this is absolutely nightmare. Once, as I said, Mike is our manager. He approached me and said, Oliver, we need to do something. And I learned how to deal with Databricks together with Vukula. Very open. I was not that open-minded at the very first beginning. As I said, direct working with data for data scientists sounds a little bit weird. Yes, we implemented DLP. We disabled download capabilities from Databricks. You know, now we are searching for solution that we are able to or enable Visual Studio Code so that engineers can directly work on their laptop. So this is another story, but basically you're absolutely right. We have different kind of data to be maintained and to be secured on the platform. Vukula will dig into that topic a little bit later. And this is the second story around. As I mentioned, with GDPR, and you know, Europe is crucial for GDPR topics. We have to separate the data between all the entities. We have to maintain that. We are not allowed to shift data from A to B without security approval, without compliance approval. So our compliance requirement is that data belonging to one entity is always belonging to one entity. And this was the initial idea, that we separate the entities on an Azure subscription level. Sounds good, but there is a big but, which Vukula will explain a little bit later. So if we look on today what is running on our platform. For Austrian or for European standards, we really do it. Many things in pure machine learning topics. We ran our anti-money laundering engine on Databricks in production, and we also, as I mentioned before, have a couple of GenAI use cases. Our GenAI expert is also in the room. Hi, Timo. So yeah, our platform is full in production. So from an outsourcing perspective, it's material outsourcing. So yes, we have to maintain the environment in a way that all our services keep up and running. Even if we do something, our data scientists they want to use Databricks more or less 24 hours a day. So it turned out that the subscription-based segregation of the entities might bring up some problems. And now I hand over to my colleague.
All right. So hi from my side. So my name is Vuko Milankovic. I'm the solution manager of the platform. In the past, I was responsible for the data engineering and the cloud infrastructure. Nowadays, mostly for the cloud where GenAI, data science, and data engineering is going on. I must say, really, at 5:20, I didn't expect this much people, so thank you for coming. There is also NBA finals. I would watch that, so thank you for coming. I hope you're going to bring something home from here. So I will go straight to the point. So I will immediately jump into the topic. So we had different management groups. Those management groups were Dev, UIT, FAT, and Prod. And inside those, there were different compliance and regulations which we needed to apply. Then from Dev, this is where the Dev subscriptions were located. So this is the subscriptions also for other countries. And here, pretty much, we are testing what is in the private preview and what is in beta. So it's pretty much taxi data. Then we have FAT. This is where the synthetic data is located, and the synthetic data is made with various tools which we are using. So from production, the tool is some kind of a proxy, and then saves the data in FAT. Then we have UIT. UIT is mostly anonymized data, and here you test if your model can be deployed on the infra, so pretty much infrastructure is working. You test if it can be deployed, then the CI/CD, you deploy it in production. In the prod management group, we had two types of subscriptions. One is the shared subscription, so pretty much, I guess, if you're on Azure, a lot of you have here the Unity Catalogue, Global Key Vault, so everything which is shared across other subscriptions. And we have the prod subscription. Inside the prod is where the actual magic happens. So here we have two separations. I will talk on the next slide how this one looks like. So we had a prod and a lab. You saw this one a couple slides ago. So in prod, technical user should have an access when your model is deployed, so pretty much that you don't impact the production. And on lab workspaces, the data scientists come and work normally, so accessing the data, full access with the reporting tools and so on. Now, the biggest problem of this, what we couldn't change, is hub and spoke. So in Erste, this one we call transit hub. So hub and spoke is a set of virtual machines. We have two firewall rules there. It's observing tool for and monitoring of all the traffic which goes through the subscription. And there is one policy which is really important. You please remind this one. This is in Erste. So inside the production subscription, we had several workspaces at that time. And each of the workspace had its own VNet, so virtual network. If you would like to communicate from VNet A to VNet B, you would need to go through hub and spoke. So this was the policy, and pretty much this is how it was. Same story is from on-prem. So the hub and spoke is the entry door to Azure. So if you are ingesting anything from on-prem or we are doing the migration, it goes through hub and spoke, and then it goes to Databricks. Now, why is that? Yeah, you can ask the guy on the right. I'm not writing security policies and networking. I need to follow them. Same is for the internet. Now, what does it mean in initial architecture? So on the shared services, in the beginning, we had the central workspace where everything was happening. So the central team was This one, I would say, is the architecture which started August 2023, and it ran till February 2024. Now, what does it mean? We ingest the data from on-prem. We have it in the central location. It's called the Data 00 Catalog. This is where my team is working on. So we ingest the data from more than 30 different data sources. And then we, at that time, as I said, we wanted to make everything central. We copied the data to several locations. There is a reason for it, why we have copied. So like Oliver explained, we have different tenants and data needs to be filtered. If you are with Databricks for a while, there was a reason for copying the data when the views didn't work on the single user compute. Most of our users were data scientists and machine learning engineers. So if we would create a view, you could only use shared compute and SQL warehouse. At that time, SQL warehouse for us wasn't that important. So on the production subscription, the workspace was located, key vault, machines, or everything, if you're on Azure, you know this separation. And then back and forth, it went through hub and spoke. There is also one more problem. We have not one budget. There are like multiple budgets. I think at the moment, there are like 50 different budgets. In this situation, I think we were like on 5 or 6, and we couldn't separate the cost of the storage. So pretty much you have a storage on one location. I know there is a cost allocation, which you can do, but our business wants to know, we went into cloud, and for them, it's like how much I have consumed because it's pay-as-you-go model. I want exact number. And not by accident, but I would say we didn't pay attention. This one increased to 1 petabyte. So we ingested 250 terabytes of data at that time. The storage was 1 petabyte with multiple copies, and also users are saving their models there and so on. And this one, we didn't know how to say allocate the cost because there was not a right rule to do this. And we ended up in the problem that the central team is paying for the storage. But even with this separation, if you check on the right, you see the cost, how they are separated. So in the production, we had the compute and the network. So obviously no storage, the storage is in the shared services. There is no access to this storage via Azure or whatever, so you don't have a contributor role, blob storage. Also, this is strongly forbidden. Also, there is no manual upload download to the platform, so really you only could access the data through Databricks. The transit hub cost, it's just a reference, 100%. You will see through the journey how this one dropped. And on the shared services, we obviously had storage cost, network, and the compute. I must say it's not a proud moment. The storage was like, I think, in the top two, and the network also shared the place, and this one should be also really on the 3rd or 4th place. But nevertheless, this was a huge success. We brought the platform to Erste. It's working. We are onboarding the users till February 2024. And in February 2024, Bootstrap timeout. I know probably a lot of you have situations in your life which you would like to forget. This is mine. So literally for a month, I mean, the incident occurred, of course, on Friday. So it was 8 a.m. and users starting reporting that the cluster can be started. And I think we first, of course, opened the severity A incident, onboarded multiple Microsoft engineers, Databricks engineers, and we didn't know for almost 2 or 3 weeks what was the reason. But the situation was next. If you turn on your cluster, it could happen that you needed 10 to 30 minutes, if you are lucky, to turn on your cluster. But this is not the problem, even if you turn on the cluster. If the table is huge, pretty much it can happen that also your cluster can scale up. So your work is wasted. And what was the root cause? If you remember from the beginning, hub and spoke was overloaded with the data. So our entry door to Azure pretty much could bring down the Office 365. Like this was the situation. So both firewall machines completely overloaded. In the short term, we increased those machines just to find a solution. But please, during this journey also onboarded more and more users, more countries. In this, I think this one was February, we started with 40 users. This is already 120 users, and we already had one production use case. So we said, all right, we need to do something, like really, and we need to do as soon as possible. So in the shared services, we had this multiplication of the catalogs, and we said, all right, we need to move the catalogs within the same network of the workspace. And this one was the first migration which we did within the Azure. There is a sample of the notebook. There is a tools which we used. You can so it's pretty much cloning of the catalog. So what we did, it's the simple exchange of the catalog. So we spawned the new one, changed the name of the new one to the old one, and then dropped the old one. So with this, we are not so we are still ingesting the data, copying the data to the production, but then the users are not going back and forth through hub and spoke. And this one always occurred, I don't know why, it's 8 a.m. in the morning and then before the lunch. So we track the network, and those are the huge tables. So the users would come, click the cluster, load the table of 6 terabytes, completely overload the hub and spoke. As much as you would increase the machines in hub and spoke, it would still impose the problem because the users are increasing, unloading the data is getting bigger and bigger, and this was a problem. So with this change that we have shifted the catalogs into the same VNet of the workspace, we immediately saw a drop of the cost. So the transit hub cost by half. Like really, this is the network of the hub and spoke. This one immediately dropped by half. And the storage cost, now we are still copying the data because of the single user compute and this limitation of the use, but you'll see with serverless, this one was solved in a final migration. So with this, we are just shifting the cost to the users, but they're still there. For the company, we didn't save anything for the storage, obviously. So because we are still copying the data, just someone else is paying. But as I said, this one immediately dropped, and bootstrap timeout, which is what was the most important for us, was resolved. Now, we, of course, even our team could bring the bootstrap timeout back, but we moved all the jobs during the night, so everything was there, just that we are not consuming the, how to say, work day time when the data scientists are working. But with this, of course, there was a problem. You know, there is data democratization, and Databricks is quite good with it, but we always follow that our network should follow the access management approach. It's always a two safety approach, that it's better be safe than sorry. Meaning we had now two use cases on two different VNets. So one use case is one VNet, another use case is second VNet. If you remember the policy which I said from the network, if you are on two different VNets, it needs to go through hub and spoke. There is no question about it. I guess this is from our CISO, or like, I don't know where is this policy, probably from on-prem. And we needed to do something. And then I think this one was already August 2024. And I think I called Oliver and was like, okay, we need to do something just to save cost and to avoid going to hub and spoke again, because the use cases which would like to share data products between each other, they are not small. And okay, let's go with VNet peering. But you know, VNet peering is 2 cents per gigabyte if you peer 2 minutes, so it's unnecessary cost which you need to pay to Microsoft, and it's really not needed. So second migration, similar to the first one, but in this case, we cloned the workspaces. So with the first one, again, I forgot to mention this one with the catalogs. So we couldn't do this during the day. So this was really always done after 6 p.m. So when everybody was like not working, the models are still running in production, but this one was tested in the morning when we performed the migration. So we always did those migrations after 6 p.m. during the night, during the weekends, just that the users come in the morning and they are not impacted at all. So the second migration with the workspaces, what we did, there is a Terraform export tool where you can replicate your workspaces, I think 99.9%. So don't get me wrong, there is, I think, machine learning experiments which are saved on top of workspaces. This one can't be replicated and cloned, but everything else can be cloned. So notebooks, whatever. So, and this tool is also used in disaster recovery. So if you need disaster recovery scenarios to create, you can also use this tool for that. Now, this now shifted from the firewall approach where the VNets are communicating between the VNets. So we always need, in the past, we always needed to create a firewall between two VNets. But now when we respawn the workspaces and apply the clone of the Terraform, we are now having the workspaces in one huge VNet per subscription, but on the subnet level. So we are still following this approach where we say they are separated, but and if you would like to have like the connection between those, you would need to create energy rule. So with the energy rule, you would just go and create, okay, I want to read from this catalog within the use case B or vice versa. So this was just the logic that we went into it. With this didn't impose that, how to say, drop in the cost, because we are still having on the shared subscription the central workspace where we are granting the data. So it dropped a little bit on the production side because we don't have a VNet peering, and in sharing of the use cases, it's not needed to go through the hub and spoke. So data stays within the Databricks. It's behind the hub and spoke as long as you're on a subscription. It's in the private network, so it doesn't leave the Databricks. It's there. So just the network cost reduced a bit, but that was it. But this was really important because it opened for us the possibility for final migration. And final migration was moving the central workspace to the common VNet. Now, this one wasn't possible. You know, last year in July 2024, serverless was published as a GA. For us, this is, yeah, whatever. So pretty much serverless was published without Azure Private Link, without egress policies. So if you would enable serverless, you are pretty much exposed fully. So we needed to wait for serverless for quite a long. So with this, we moved the Databricks to the common VNet, which enabled us to have the views on top of the tables, where we dropped pretty much all the catalogs which were multiplied, meaning the data is not anymore multiplied, and the compute which run to grant access to the data is gone. Now, there is a big problem. Maybe you know this, maybe you don't. If you have, for instance, workspace which uses serverless on the same NCC, and for instance, you screw up on the access management, the user would be able to access the catalog with the serverless on the same NCC to, for instance, different use case. For this, you need to use the binding of the workspaces and assign it to the catalogs. This is really quite important, and we are also using this one. So with this one, we pretty much dropped the costs on the transit hub because we are not going anymore through hub and spoke. We're granting the data. We are ingesting the data to the central location through hub and spoke, but then granting access to the data is behind the doors of hub and spoke. So hub and spoke is not anymore involved. So with this, as I said, we created the views on top of the central location. Now the user could get an access to the silver or the gold layer schemas, but on their side, they could work on those, create whatever, materialize whatever they need. But most important is that the storage is not anymore impacted. So pretty much I think we said here like 50% of the storage. Then in the shared services, everything is gone because now it's moved to the production. I would say the production representation of the cost, it's just the distribution, how we have it. So I would say 20% or 30% in the production is the storage at the moment, 40 or 50% is the compute, and everything else is the network. So currently what we are paying for the network is just the private endpoints between the workspace and the catalog, which is 2 cents per gigabyte. This one you can't avoid. So I would say with this scenario, we pretty much ended with the same network cost on traditional compute and also on the serverless. So if you would like to spawn serverless, the serverless would have on the compute side private endpoint, and also on the control plane, private endpoint on the control plane on Databricks, and private endpoint on the storage account inside our company. So it's again 2 cents per gigabyte. So the network is the same in the serverless scenario and also in the traditional compute. And as this was the final migration, we are now, I think, this enabled with switching to views, I think, in February this year with egress policies. But egress policies weren't in the Terraform enabled. So we needed to wait for those, and we waited, and then Mike said, if we don't enable serverless, we're gonna die. So in April, I pretty much configured manually egress policies for like 120 workspaces. I think last week they said that egress policies is now also in Terraform. So we always have egress policy per workspace. It's never like a common one that shares, because each of use case has a different OpenAI. It has a different access to different database and stuff like that. So the journey, as I said, started just as an overview, started in August 2023. At that time, we had around 40 users in UAT phase. Then the bootstrap timeout occurred. I would say this was, a wake-up call. It's really we would initially also do something on optimization, because 2024 was a year when we said, all right, one of our KRs is optimization on the platform, but this one was really at the perfect time. It was in February. And then as a migration of the catalogs occurred immediately, just to avoid hub and spoke. Then migration of the workspaces, replication. So as I said, both needed to be done not to impact the user, especially the second one, because in the second one, we already had 4 GenAI use cases running with more than 2,000 users using daily the bots. Then we had 3 or 4 machine learning production. And in this situation, we are already business critical solution classified inside in the company, meaning something is down, company is losing money. And the final migration is pretty much for us as a central team, which reduced additional cost for our team, but overall, I would say for entire company as a platform, we brought the cost significantly down. So tools which we are used, GitHub is the catalog migration, and the workspace resource exporter is for the Terraform. So as I said, the second one you can use for the disaster recovery. You can replicate your workspace once per week. The catalog migration is like really pretty much straightforward. You specify catalog A, catalog B, and then you just do those stuff. So really, if you have any screw up or whatever that you have spawned your workspace and then you need to move it, migrate it, you have the tools for that. So it shouldn't be a problem. So yeah, thank you. I hope you enjoyed. If you have any questions, please, yeah.
Mike's dashboard.
Yeah, Mike's dashboard.
You forgot Mike's dashboard.